Hello again, my fiber friends. I'm Riri, and this is Exploration Crochet, part of the Yarn Over Hook Network. This week, we're stepping into a moment of alternate facts, a moment that feels like it should be well documented. The kind of moment that, if it had gone just a little differently, might have changed how every single one of us crochets today. Because in 1911, according to a handful of scattered references, partial notes, and what can only be described as polite academic frustration, there was an attempt, an international effort, a quiet gathering of pattern writers, teachers, and textile thinkers who believed something radical, that crochet could be standardized, that patterns could speak one language, that a stitch could mean the same thing everywhere. This, my friends, is the story of the Council of Brussels, and how, over the course of 3 days, crochet almost agreed. So, grab your hook, settle in, and let's explore what happened. To understand why this council mattered, we need to understand what crochet looked like at the time. By the early 1900s, crochet was everywhere. It had moved from fine lacework into household use, edgings, garments, decorative pieces. It appeared in magazines, instructional booklets, newspapers, and increasingly informal teaching environments. But if you picked up two different patterns, there was no guarantee they were speaking the same language. Patterns were written in full sentences, sometimes entire paragraphs describing a single row. Terminology shifted not just between countries, but between publishers. Even within the same region, one teacher might describe a stitch one way, and another teacher would describe the same action completely differently. And tucked into the margin of a teaching pamphlet attributed to a London instructor, you find this note, quote, "The students produce identical work, yet speak of it as though each has made something different. I cannot determine whether the confusion lies in the language or in myself," end quote. And that, my friends, that was the problem. At the same time, other crafts were beginning to organize. Knitting patterns were becoming more structured, sewing patterns were moving toward consistency, industry was pushing toward repeatability and clarity. And crochet? Crochet was not doing that. So the idea began to circulate. What if we fixed it? What if crochet had a shared system, a universal terminology? A way for a pattern written in Paris to be worked in London and understood in Boston, without reinterpretation. And so, in 1911, a small international council convened in Brussels. Not a grand congress, but intentional, focused, hopeful. Among those said to be present, Madame Eloise Fournier of Paris, precise, exacting, deeply committed to consistency in lacework. Mr. Arthur Pembroke of London, a publisher who believed strongly in structured terminology and clarity in instruction. Miss Clara Whitcomb of Boston, a teacher who prioritized how real learners actually understood patterns, and Herr Dietrich Wollmann of Leipzig, a man who approached crochet with something very close to mathematical philosophy. In a note attributed to him, we find, quote, "A craft that cannot describe itself clearly will forever depend on imitation rather than understanding," end quote. Which tells you everything. At first, things went well. There was agreement on the goal, agreement on the need, and in what is believed to be an opening remark from Pembroke, quote, "We are not here to alter the craft, but to clarify it, to give to it a language equal to its reach," end quote. It's hopeful. It's ambitious. It feels possible. And then they reached the stitch. You know this stitch. Yarn over, insert hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Simple, familiar, almost foundational. And yet, it became the problem. Because the question was simply, what do we call it? Pembroke argued for double crochet. To him, the stitch's height, its structure, its visual presence in the fabric, these defined it. Fournier disagreed, firmly. In her notes, quote, "The designation must arise from the action itself. To name it otherwise is to mislead the hand that forms it." For her, the process mattered, the construction. And by that logic, it was a single. In what appears to be Pembroke's reply, quote, "The lady mistakes construction for comprehension. The maker does not count motions, they see form," end quote. And just like that, the room divided. What followed was not a quick disagreement. It was 3 days of diagrams drawn and redrawn, of samples examined and reworked, of explanations that began with, "Well, clearly," and ended with, "No, not clearly." Whitcomb wrote, quote, "Each explanation resolves the matter for one and complicates it for another. I begin to suspect that clarity itself is not universal," end quote. And Volman added, quote, "If a system cannot be derived logically, it will fail. If it is too rigid, it will not be used," end quote. And then something shifted. On the second evening, a demonstration was proposed. A sample swatch. The goal was simple. Show the stitch, name it, agree. Pembroke demonstrated first. Calm, precise, structured. Then Fournier took the hook. Same yarn, same hook, same instructions. And yet, the fabric was not identical, not dramatically different, but different nonetheless. Tension shifted, height changed, structure varied. And Fournier wrote, quote, "If the same instruction yields 2 results, then the instruction is insufficient," end quote. What followed wasn't just debate, it was demonstration layered on demonstration. Pembroke insisted it was execution. Fournier argued it was the system, and then Vollmer stepped in. He counted movements, each yarn over, each pull through, and wrote, quote, "They claim to perform the same action, yet their hands do not agree. Therefore, the name cannot resolve the difference," end quote. And Whitcomb, she saw it clearly. Quote, "I begin to suspect we are not in disagreement about the name, but about the act itself," end quote. By now, the question had changed. Not, what do we call this stitch, but what is this stitch? Is crochet defined by what the hands do, what the eyes see, or what the mind understands? Because once you choose, everything follows. And so, after 3 days, no agreement, no standard, no resolution. Just a single line in the record. The matter was discussed at length. No resolution was adopted. And then the council dissolved, quietly. And crochet? Crochet continued. Multiple systems, multiple truths, and eventually, US and UK terminology. Two systems, both right, both incompatible. Because here's the truth. Crochet has never had one language. It lives in the hands, in the adjustments, in the understanding that forms over time. So, no, crochet wasn't standardized in 1911, but for a moment, an imaginary moment, it almost was. There are those who say we've never recovered. And if you've ever mixed US and UK terms, you might just agree. If you would like to learn more about real crochet history, I encourage you to follow, like, subscribe, and share Exploration Crochet. You'll find crochet's art, history, and culture, past as well as present, plus entertainment and education woven into every stitch. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Until next time, this has not been Real Exploration Crochet.